strong game at times as well, and he's just been the Ducks' best player over the last 15 to 20 games. And like you said, you brought up those numbers. He's getting a point on over 40% of their chances, and on either scoring or directly setting up over 30% of them since he's been in the lineup. Like, that is dominant, and that's controlling your team's offense. And that's what we talked about on the last show on guys who should be considered for the Hart as guys who contribute to a higher percentage of their team offense individually. And we had mentioned guys like Taylor Hall and Connor McDavid and Nathan McKinnon. And I think if Getzlaf plays a full season where he's completely healthy and is playing at that level, he has to be in the top 5 in that discussion.
Raquel, Perry, and Getzlaf, no points tonight.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's good and bad, right?
Yeah. The good part of it is Kasha and Richie with points. So that's also good. We'll take those anytime. Doesn't matter if they're power play
because other guys are stepping up and contributing to the scoring, which is what we were looking for.
No, 100%. So, I mean, do you think that it can drive them into the playoffs, Getzlaf alone? Do you think they can rely on him at this level?
Not with only 11 games remaining. I feel like we've kind of seen that, right? I mean, they played very well against Nashville, Dallas, and St. Louis, and the Ducks lost because they didn't have anything else going for them.
I asked that because I had seen that online. People are saying, Getzlaf can carry this team, and I'm like, you forget who's in net, and there's so much hate and wrongfully directed hate at John Gibson over Ducks, message boards, especially on Facebook, people talking about him. It's like, they just don't realize how good he is this year. Or even last year, he played really well too. So, but this team needs a collective effort. They need that middle six to be scoring. So let's hop off the topic of Getzlaf. You had an interesting tweet. Was it Sean Tierney's tweet talking about the average scoring per position?
Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up here. He had like a whole thread today where he had kind of cracked down on what the average score in all situations over, like, for the entire National Hockey League over a certain time period. He didn't mention it, but so at center, the average player is at about 35 points. He gave an example, and that would be Cal Yarncrux. Left wing and right wing were averaging about 24 points, so that's like Carl Hagelin and a Connor Brown type player. And defense was 18 points, which you put in here was like Cody Ceci or Dan Hamhuis. Then he goes completely in depth as well, looking at just a total of what a line 1, line 2, line 3, and line 4 player look like at each position based off points. And you've got centers. You're looking at a first line guys about 66 points. So it's like a Sagan. Second line's about 47, like a Zuccarello. 37 and 19 for the third and fourth. Left wing and right wing are about the same, about 45 to 50 points for line 1, 20 to 25 for line 2, 10 to 15 for line 3, and then pretty low, about 1 to 5 for a line 4 player. And I thought that was very interesting. I wanted to see how the Ducks players kind of line up with that. See, we were talking about a lot about how this is the top 9 that they're stuck with for at least this season and next season, based on, guys can't really crack the lineup and move those guys down. So I wanted to see how the Ducks players kind of lined up to that and analyze them based off of what he came up with, because I thought it'd be an interesting kind of study to look at.
So if you look at the Ducks' leading scorer, Rickard Rakell, 30 goals, 29 assists, in 66 games. He's got 59 points. That puts him just below that right now.
Yeah, but I think this was over an 82-game stretch as well.
Okay. So he's definitely going to be up there
yeah.
in that range.
Yeah.
And probably same with Getzlaf, right? Yeah. He's going to be above average at this. I mean, he could be. That's close.
Yeah,
if he were to average
over a
points
full
on,
season, he would be. Yeah.
He definitely would be. And, Perry's almost there, too, to be honest with you, at 42 points. How did you feel about the middle? If you look at the middle six there, look at Andre Kasha, 32 points, Silverberg, 31, down to Henrique with 27. What was your feeling on that? You feel like they kind of fit in here, or is this something you could see? I know we're making comparisons, but every game's different, every team's different. But looking at direct comparisons to what the points are putting up on average, was there any glaring players you saw here? You're kind of like, oh, okay, maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of looking. I'll break down their top 6 pretty quick. But you already mentioned Rakell, and he's definitely that line 1 guy. I mean, he's playing left wing right now, and they had their left wing 1 as an average of about 47 points, where he's already got over that. And he's almost at the top line center for points, so he's definitely a line one guy. Getzlaf, like you said, if he was over a full season, he would be a line one guy. Perry right now, 42 points. They consider a line one guy to be 49 points. Probably will hit that, and again, Perry's only played 59 games this year. He's had some injury problems as well. So, I mean, we've been hard on Perry all season, and based off the average right winger in the National Hockey League, he's considered a first-line winger, which is, I mean, I think it's surprising to hear that from most. Then you kind of get down to the next tier of guys. You got Silverberg, who's scoring at 31. That puts him right between line 1 and line 2. You've got Kasha as well, 31 points. That puts him again right between line 1 and line 2. You've got Henrique at center with 41 points. That puts him between the line 2, line 3 center, which I think is where we kind of expect him to be. And then just to finish it off with Cogliano and Ritchie. Ritchie's got 22 points. That puts him pretty much around a line 3 left wing. And the same goes for Cogliano, who's got 26. That puts him at about a borderline second line left winger. So I think the Ducks' top 9 definitely looks like it's better than average. I don't think it's the best in the National Hockey League, but that's something we've kind of boasted for a while, and now with the offense going a little bit anemic, it hasn't looked like it. But if everybody can get hot and get going, I think this is a very, very difficult team to match up against.
No, I agree with you, man. And it's nice to see that they're actually slotting in those spots. I think the one part that I looked at I was a little disappointed in, the Ducks don't really have that D1 in points.
Yeah.
You look down at his tweet, it's kind of like that 40-point range, Riley, Hamilton, Letang. Ducks have guys in between there, though. Keith, Edler, right? I mean, that's a 26-point range. And these are just averages over.
And those are offensive numbers as well. So,
right.
You know, it doesn't really take into the defensive consideration, and where Lindholm's more of a defensive guy who could still put up about 30 points. Fowler, again, is not going to light the world on fire. Manson definitely isn't, but I think his point total this season has surprised a lot of people. So it's not bad to have a bunch of D2 guys, and I think if you throw in Lindholm's defensive ability, that probably puts him in that D1 category. But that's definitely something they're missing. I think it's what a lot of people expected Montour to be or eventually be, is that consistent offensive threat who can get over 40 points. I don't know if he'll ever hit that, but that's really what this Ducks blue line is missing, is that kind of go-to point guy.
So that kind of segues into our last bit of information that we're going to talk about when it comes to the Ducks system. Is it a system issue that we asked before? Is this a Randy Carlyle issue when you're talking about the Ducks defensemen here, about their inability to put up these points? We brought up some topics about what coaches could be in the running if for somehow Randy Carlyle becomes on the hot seat. You know, we said last post game there's no way that's going to happen. Especially if this team makes the playoffs, there's no way that Bob Murray's going to let a guy go who's able to, go through this season with all the injuries on his team. But we brought up some guys. You put together a short list here of some possibilities. And if it's a system issue, which we've seen all over Twitter, I've seen a lot of people talk about Carlyle being outcoached, especially in that last game where he had Kevin Bieksa out with the pulled goaltender, 6-on-5. He had some power play. He had some minutes with Perry, Getzlaf, and Raquel. Are those glaring issues to you, or is that just him having to utilize another defenseman that he has on his bench?
I feel like it's him utilizing another defenseman he has on his bench, but it doesn't mask any glaring issues they have. We have a discussion coming up about Carlyle and his possible replacements, and I think that kind of goes into that as well. And I think a lot of people are just kind of fed up with some of the decisions that Carlyle makes. I mean, today, for the longest time, we thought it was going to be Bieksa and Beauchemin together. And it was kind of back and forth until the final, final 5 minutes before the game when the lineup sheet was tweeted out by Eric Stevens that Pettersson was indeed in the game. It's kind of interesting. I feel like he is just kind of utilizing that last guy, but there definitely are some glaring issues.
I feel like the best teams in the league have that top four.
Yeah.
And they run that top four majority of the game, as many minutes. I mean, Fowler played a ridiculous 27 minutes tonight. You can't ask that of your entire lineup. but you can mitigate the minutes that your third pair sees and what situations they're deployed in.
Yeah.
And we've seen some pretty crappy deployments from Carlyle, especially over this recent stretch.
Yeah.
So that begs the question then. I mean, why not follow the model that's been successful where you play those guys 6 minutes a night in your third pair and you run your guys, your top four, the most? And I mean, these guys are young defensemen that are good on this team. You got Manson, Montour, Fowler, and Lindholm. There's no reason they can't play upwards of 22 minutes a night to cover those other shifts. Do you feel like it might be time for a change with those lineup decisions and those deployment decisions? And does it necessarily fall all on Carlyle? I know that he makes the top decisions, but I mean, Trent Yanni's there as well.
Yeah, I think, I mean, something we had brought up before, and I know it's different comparing regular season to playoffs, but we talked about Chicago and their utilization of their defense in the playoffs, how they literally just played with a top four, and I think it was like it was Timonen and Roosevelt, and then those guys that they played like 10 maybe 9 minutes a night. And I think the Ducks are almost at that point where they pretty much have to do that. I mean, at 5-on-5 today, Beauchemin and Pettersson played just over 11 minutes, so it's not like they're getting utilized a lot. But when you've got two pairs just clicking, you've got the Manson-Lindholm pair going insane, you've got the Fowler-Montour pair that's continuing to play well. I think you got to just play these guys as much as you can. And like you said, they're young guys. They can handle it. They've shown they can all play 22, 23 minutes a night. I know it's a risk to kind of tire these guys out going into the playoffs, but yeah, I mean, for Lindholm, I think the interesting thing tonight is he only played 11:57, 5-on-5, 16 minutes in all situations. Felt like I know he got hurt and he was gone for a bit, but I feel like those should even be a little bit higher just based on the fact that even though he was hurt, I feel like he should be a guy that should be utilized a little bit more. Manson obviously picked up the lion's share of those minutes and ended up playing 19, 5-on-5 on the night. But yeah, it has to be something that you look at for it to really be Carlyle's fault. I think he has to use these guys more often, especially when the confidence really isn't there for this bottom pairing. And we're seeing a makeshift bottom pairing pretty much every game. It's either going to be Pettersson or Bieksa. It's going to be Beauchemin or Bieksa. It's going to be Pettersson or Beauchemin. And when you don't have that consistency down there, it's hard to get anything going in the right direction. And when you've got these two other pairings above them playing so well, I mean, you might as well play them as much as you can.
And if you're going to play that third pair 12 to 14 minutes, I mean, you better utilize them correctly with deploying them.
Yeah.
In situations that they can benefit from, right? You don't want them out against, I guess, someone's top line. I know there was comments made about Beauchemin and Bieksa being out there against the Tarasenko line against St. Louis, and you're like, wait a minute, why? Why would you do that? Why would you have them out there like that? Makes no sense. The same could go for any situation here with Beauchemin and Pettersson. You don't want to have them out there against, Bo Horvat or the Sedins. You want to kind of shelter these guys and give them the easier minutes. And I think that's what people are talking about when it comes to Carlyle being outcoached. So if he were to be on the hot seat, as you mentioned last show, which we don't think he's going to be, if these issues happen, the Ducks miss the playoffs, and somehow, some way he becomes in the spotlight where he's going to have his job taken away from him, who are the guys you feel would be best suited or most looked at to replace him?
Yeah, and I think the first one is kind of the most obvious. At least it kind of comes from in-house, and that'd be Dallas Eakins down with the Gulls. I think he's done a good job with what he's done. Obviously has a little bit more familiarity with the Ducks players and the prospects coming up, so I think that's kind of the go-to option for them. I don't know if it's the best one, but I think it's definitely the safest one, and we've seen the Ducks before. Obviously, going back to Randy Carlyle was a safe option for them. They knew what they were going to get from him. They've obviously been in constant contact with him, so it was kind of the safer option over other guys like Travis Green, who was in the discussion to go to Anaheim. So if they're going to stick to that trend, I feel like he's the guy. I kind of want to know your opinion on Dallas Eakins, because I haven't seen a lot of what he's done with San Diego. Obviously, I can just look at their record and their play as of late. But I'm interested to see your opinion on his option, because he's been in the NHL before with Edmonton.
And he didn't have a good run in Edmonton.
No.
I feel like, but I don't know if that was all his fault. I mean, you look at that, the way that team's managed now, And you kind of laugh at the fact that they wasted the years of Connor McDavid's entry-level contract, and now they got to pay him big bucks next year, and they're going to miss the playoffs. So whatever you want to say about what Dallas Eakins did there, you kind of have to put that in perspective as to what